Welcome to Unit 5, Section 3, Meeting Preschoolers' Intellectual Needs. After studying this lesson, you should be able to describe activities that foster a preschooler's memory capacity, summarize activities that aid in their comprehension of logical thinking concepts, explain how to stimulate symbolic learning in a preschooler, describe language activities that help preschoolers develop language skills, and evaluate electronic media activities currently available for preschoolers to determine their educational value. Preschool children are on the go. Their motor skills usually improve in conjunction with other lessons they are learning. For example, they use their gross motor skills when they engage in pretend play and their fine motor skills when they sort and draw. To help them hone their motor skills, you can plan activities that, among other skills, involve physical movement. They need lots of opportunities for physical play. Not only are physical activities vital to building their motor skills, they are also needed for their physical health. Memory develops rapidly during preschool years as brain development makes way for their frequent use of working and episodic memory. Memory is vital to all domains of development, and it is important that caregivers and teachers plan many activities to help them develop and practice their memory skills. Many memory games are commercially available for preschool learning, but these games do little for children in comparison to everyday activities that caregivers and other adults can plan. Parents and other adults can help preschoolers develop and practice their memory skills in the following ways. Help them understand stories and happenings before asking them to recall them. Children have a difficult time recalling what they do not understand. Use leading questions and prompting to stir up their interest in their memory. Instead of asking, "What did you do yesterday?" you might ask, "What game did you play with your uncle yesterday?" When giving directions, ask them to repeat the directions before starting on the task. This will help their working memory. Use photos to remind a child about people, places, or events that they don't see regularly. Use prompting photos to help a child recall specific events from their past, like a birthday party. Reread stories as often as they request you to read them. When rereading them or repeating songs and rhymes, change something in the story or song and see whether your child notices. Frequently repeat safety rules and other concepts that they are learning. Repeat lessons after there's been a lapse in time to help children remember and easily recall them. During the preschool years, children are learning a variety of concepts. They learn to note physical attributes, understand physical knowledge, and begin to comprehend logical thinking concepts, using their perceptions and intuition. For each area of concept learning during the preschool years, parents and caregivers can aid intellectual development by planning helpful activities. Preschool children learn to note physical attributes through observation and through their sense of sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. During the preschool years, children learn to compare and contrast the attributes of various physical objects. Adults can help children learn and distinguish between physical attributes by inviting their preschoolers to analyze physical attributes with them. When interacting with preschoolers, adults can call attention to physical attributes and then describe or ask the child to describe a sight, sound, texture, odor, or taste. They can emphasize the names of attributes and help preschoolers compare and contrast physical objects. Noting attributes shown in books and other media can also help preschool children process and remember physical attributes. There are many games and activities you could plan to foster these skills. For example, an activity that uses seeing, you could go on an I Spy walk or ride and have them identify a given attribute, such as a color or shape. For hearing, you could depict emotions through your voice as you read stories. For touching, you can ask a child to describe texture before feeling an object, or add texture to their Play-Doh creations. For smelling, you can ask the child to sniff and describe spices or identify foods by their odor. For tasting, you can ask the child to describe how foods taste or identify the texture of foods by tasting. For comparing and contrasting things, you can have the child explain how some items are similar or different that you gather up. For shape sorting, you can ask older children to name shapes and explain how they recognized each shape. For varieties of liquids, you could have a child watch the pouring of 3 liquids in different thicknesses and ask the child which liquid pours the fastest and the slowest. Preschoolers are fascinated by natural events and ask many why questions, even though they do not yet have logical capabilities to understand the answers. As a result, they come up with illogical thoughts on their own. When preschoolers communicate illogical explanations for events that they cannot understand, you can correct them but should not expect them to comprehend the correct explanation. You can keep these explanations simple, and remember all children have many more years to learn all of these facts. Physical knowledge lessons are closely tied to children's perceptions of cause and effect. Because cause and effect is a logical thinking concept, it's difficult for preschoolers to do. Because preschoolers do not think logically, their use of logical thinking concepts does not fully mature during the preschool years. Nevertheless, there are activities you can plan to help them begin to understand these concepts. Preschoolers can benefit from activities that encourage sorting and classifying, ordering by attributes, seeing cause and effect, understanding spatial concepts, understanding number concepts, and noting time concepts. To sort and classify, to help them practice, you can use commercial sorting materials like shape sorters for three-dimensional geometric shapes. Common household items like clothing, toys, flatware, or groceries can also be used to teach sorting lessons. For example, to turn a grocery shopping trip into a sorting lesson, an adult might say, let's put all the foods that are in boxes together and then put all the canned foods together. Parents and caregivers can also begin to teach them classifying techniques. For example, after showing a child small blocks that may be classified by color and shape, an adult may ask, are any of these alike in some way? When the child singles out a common attribute, such as some of the blocks are round, you might say, can you find all the round pieces and put them in this box? Then we will put all the other blocks that are not round in the other box. For ordering by attributes, while preschool children have trouble putting items in order by a magnitude of an attribute, many activities can help them understand how to practice this. You can help plan activities that involve observable differences in height, weight, pitch, or appearance. For example, you might ask a child to arrange objects from shortest to tallest, or to order the keys of a piano on pitch from high to low. Children can see and hear these differences, which helps them comprehend the arrangement. When helping preschoolers with seriating activities, you need to keep the difficulty level of the task in mind and make it appropriate for the child. Here are some factors that make seriating tasks less difficult. Having fewer number of objects to arrange, using objects with equal differences in increments versus trying to seriate people's heights, using objects that differ in only one attribute, such as a different size of squares rather than different sizes of mixed shapes, having greater differences between increments of magnitude, such as 3, 6, and 10-inch rods as compared with a 3, 4, and 5-inch rod. It's difficult to find household items that are suitable for seriating because of the problem of finding objects that differ in only one attribute. Because of this, commercial seriating materials are usually better than adult collected items. Some commercial materials include cylinder blocks, Barrick tablets, color tablets, nesting objects, unit blocks, and Cuisinart rods. For seeing cause and effect, observable cause and effect relationships are easier to understand than non-observable ones. Parents and caregivers can help their preschoolers comprehend cause and effect in the following ways. Ask children to predict regular household happenings. Ask, what will happen when water is turned on above your glass? Or what will happen when I open the drain in the bathtub? When reading pictures, read the title, show the children the cover, and then ask them to predict what each story is about or who the main characters are. Continue to ask for predictions throughout the story. Choose picture books that involve cause and effect relationships. When speaking with children, make cause and effect statements such as the room is sunny because the sun is shining through the windows, or your cup is empty because you drank all your milk. Encourage children to experiment with cause and effect using physical movements. For example, a caregiver could help preschool children build ramps with blocks and then let balls roll down the ramps. Ask what makes the ball go down the ramp? Which ramp makes the ball go fastest? The slowest? Why? As preschoolers' understanding of spatial concepts deepens, several activities can be used to enhance their learning. The first spatial concept should pertain to the self. Caregivers can use spatial words in everyday conversation. They can say, put your hat on your head, or put your clothes in the closet. They can also use these words in games like I Spy. You can encourage children to act out the directional words they hear and can read stories while emphasizing directional actions. Activities that teach preschool children spatial concepts in relation to themselves are also helpful. You can play games that require them to position their bodies. They can tell them to jump forward 2 jumps or put the shoe under your chin. Simon Says and the Hokey Pokey are also fun games that require positioning. As preschool children grow older, they can learn more difficult spatial words like away from, toward, right, left, center, and corner. Hands-on projects can help older preschoolers understand spatial concepts that pertain to other objects. Caregivers can help preschoolers grasp spatial concepts by assigning them simple spatial tasks like setting a table. You can help children build simple bridge-type structures and ask them to place blocks on, under, behind, or in front of the bridge. Then you can ask them to place objects in different positions on magnetic or flannel boards and ask them to name the positions of given objects in relation to other objects. For number concepts, they learn counting concepts rapidly. Once they can count both forward and backward, they can name numbers and come before any given number. Parents and caregivers can help them learn counting by arranging sets of objects in straight rows or columns and gradually increasing the size of sets children are expected to count. Other ways parents can help preschoolers learn counting may include asking preschool children to touch each item while counting and exposing them to counting picture books, rhymes, and finger place. To teach numerals, you can explain that numerals are the names for how many. Some activities for learning numerals include matching numerals with sets of objects, identifying numerals in a game, completing a puzzle with numerals, making a number line, and playing I Spy with numerals. Numeral concepts should be taught through activities involved in everyday life. At this stage, numeral concepts presented in workbooks are meaningless and not fun. Preschoolers may encounter challenges within the language surrounding number concepts. They may equate indefinite terms like less, few, many, and some with numbers. When helping them learn number concepts, you should avoid using these indefinite terms and be as clear as possible. For time concepts, it will be difficult for preschoolers whether you plan activities to encourage these concepts or not. They will not fully comprehend time concepts until school-age years. You can use time words as you talk with preschoolers. Some time words include before, after, then, yesterday, tomorrow, soon, morning, and night. To help them understand the passing of time, caregivers and teachers can use picture schedules of children's daily activities. In these schedules, children can read what will happen at each time. For symbolic learning activities, the understanding of symbols continues to mature during preschool years, as they develop symbolic thought and are able to imagine scenarios and symbols outside their realms of experience. Parents and caregivers can plan a variety of activities to help them grasp these concepts. Children use symbols in pretend play by using props and by taking on the representation of another person or object. To understand these forms of symbolism, preschoolers need many opportunities to play and pretend that they are other people and objects. They also need objects that they can pretend represent other things. For the most part, children need only a little help in pretending. Their imaginations allow them to pretend that they are other people with minimal props and encouragement. If an adult suggests they pretend to be an underwater diver, they might pretend to be putting on a deep-sea fishing outfit and then dive after lost treasures while being careful not to be attacked by sharks. Children can also use symbols when they paint, color, or create other forms of art. Younger children tend to create art products first and then decide what they represent. As children mature, however, their ideas about what a piece of art represents tend to precede the actual creation of the product. As true of all symbolic art representations, children decide what objects and art pieces represent, not adults. Preschoolers may use a variety of objects such as crayons, paints, building blocks, or clay to represent who or what they want. Even if their art products do not resemble the real-life objects or the people they represent, these art products symbolize the real world for the child. Preschool children learn language by paying attention to what they hear, including how other people articulate sounds, use vocab, and grammar. Through the observation of adults, preschoolers also learn about the process of reading and writing. For this reason, adults must be the best language and literacy models they can be and should make efforts to talk and read with preschoolers. Preschool children need many daily chances to talk with adults and older children and see them engaged in the literacy tasks of reading and writing. When they play only with peers or young children, they do not learn as quickly as they do by talking with adults. The following are some suggestions for ways in which adults and older children can support language and literacy development of preschoolers. Make language and literacy a part of all activities. Use important words in daily tasks and games. Read to children every day. In addition to exposing children to real-world and expanding concepts, reading books helps children understand language and grammar. Preschoolers who are exposed to reading and writing more often are likely to learn these concepts faster and better. What's more, story concepts can be stretched to involve pretend play and other activities. After reading a book, talk about story plots with the preschooler by asking more comprehension questions, such as, why do you think this happened? Or why did the character do what he did? Monitor their television viewing, including the types of program and total length of viewing time. While some programs are helpful, holding actual conversations with adults and other children is a much better learning experience. Provide opportunities for preschoolers to observe adults reading and writing, both for work and for pleasure. Use correct grammar and articulation. Children imitate what they see and need to observe how literacy functions in their parents' and caregivers' lives. Beyond the need for talking and reading with preschoolers, some parents our teachers in preschool programs are beginning to teach actual reading and writing before the school years. This early instruction has become an issue among early childhood educators and resulted in some differing approaches. The two approaches are reading readiness and emergent literacy. Reading readiness is a belief that children should be formally taught reading and writing when they are developmentally ready for instruction. The concept of reading readiness is based on the principles of maturational theory of child development. This theory holds to the belief that children mature on a genetic timetable, where the environment has little impact, and that skills and concepts should only be taught when children are biologically ready to learn them. These theorists believe that children were biologically mature enough to learn reading and writing at 6 years old. Gradually, schools started teaching reading and writing at 5 years, and then in some pre-kindergarten programs. The purpose of reading readiness programs is to prepare children for formal reading instruction. By contrast, a lot of theorists today believe in emergent literacy, which is defined by theorists as all aspects of literacy, including reading and writing, are developmental and learned in interactive ways, beginning in infancy as they begin to learn to understand spoken words. Emergent literacy is based on the theories of Piaget and Vygotsky. Research shows, beginning in the late toddler to early preschool years, young children pass through several stages in the learning of literacy. Differences between reading readiness and emergent literacy vary. Although preschool children and kindergarten programs are divided in the way that they approach teaching reading and writing prior to first grade, research evidence seems to support emergent literacy as the more effective method of teaching reading and writing. Technology devices are found everywhere, and even preschoolers experience technology as a major part of the context of their lives. Technological devices can be classified as interactive or non-interactive media. Interactive refers to media like computers that respond to a user's actions. Non-interactive media, or passive media, refers to media systems, such as television programs, over which the user has a limited amount of control. Interactive media systems are used for communication, collaboration, learning, entertainment, and daily life management. Culture demands that people develop digital literacy even from an early age. The National Association for the Education of Young Children, in conjunction with the Fred Rogers Center for Early Learning and Children's Media, has developed a joint statement concerning media integration in learning environments for young children. This statement holds that media integration needs to be assessed against what is already known about children's development. With this criteria in mind, parents and caregivers can understand what types of media are appropriate for preschoolers. They can follow some basic principles suggested by the experts, which includes screen time. The total screen time for all devices and all settings must be monitored and limited by caregivers. Recommendations by different authorities for total daily screen time vary from 30 minutes to 2 hours. Within this time frame, screen time can increase for older preschoolers. Total screen time should be broken into short segments of time. Effect. Parents and caregivers should assess media systems to determine what effect they may have on their preschool children. Purpose. Media should always be used for learning, never just for technology's sake. Media should support and enhance learning, not drive it. Type. Interactive media should be used rather than non-interactive. Media should be chosen for its ability to foster active and creative use by the child and for its likelihood to encourage social interactions. Content. Electronic media should be developmentally appropriate for the child. The content of media systems matters much more than format. Interactiveness. The use of media should emphasize co-participation between adults and children and among children. And inclusiveness. Media use in childcare and education programs should be accessible to a variety of people. Caregivers and teachers should realize that children differ in their home access to digital devices and software just as they do to print media. Parents, caregivers, and teachers should keep in mind that there is conflicting evidence about the value of technology in preschool children's development. Experts have identified some possible negative outcomes, including behavioral issues, problems focusing on tasks, irregular sleep patterns, and negative effects on socialization and language skills. These problems may result from too much screen time, poor quality software, or incorrect use of technology. Electronic media activities can be beneficial for preschool learning, but parents, caregivers, and teachers should always assess research findings on technology in the lives of their young children. All right, thank you for listening. That's the end of this section.